Hello, Noble Knitter, it's Nancy Queen, and today I'm here to talk to you more about continental knitting. A while back I did this video on continental knitting, and I get so many questions on improving your techniques, what to do if your knitting's too tight, what to do if it's too loose. So we're going to dive in and answer all your questions right now. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click the bell to get notified every time I post. The first question is from Naya. She says, I just started knitting and I wanted to do this style since it requires less hand movement, but I knit so tightly with this style that it makes it even harder to pick the needle since there's not much gap in my loops. Any advice? I'm so close to giving up. So tip number one is go wide. You want to make sure that you're actually getting your stitch when you pick it through up on the shaft, the widest part of the needle. If you're just picking up with the point and not getting it up on the stitch, it's going to make the next row really, really hard to work, and that's one of the problems you're running into. Now there could be a few other things, and we're going to go through those as well, but we have questions on those. So Naya, stay tuned because I have even more tips for you. Question number 2 is from Edna Santiago. Hello, I usually have trouble with the tension. Do you pull the yarn tight with your index finger after you have knitted the stitch? How do you control the tension? I'm a beginner. Thanks. Well, tip number 2 is it's all about the tension, and you want to make sure that you are going nice and even and maintaining tension with your fingers. I never pull up on a stitch afterwards. I just let the yarn wrap around the needle and then I go on to the next stitch. Your left hand that controls the tension will keep it so that it's somewhat tight. And how tight are you holding your tension? You want to feed the yarn. You don't want to have it tight like a kite string. And you don't want it so loose that it's just like flopping around. You just want it nice and even, and it will come. You just have to give it some time. Question number 3 is from MBD Sketch. This seems very useful, but I'm also noticing how much looser her tension is than mine. She has a lot more room to move her needles to catch the yarn. I can try this tomorrow, but I can't really change my tension. Well, we just talked a little bit about tension, but with tip number 3, I'd like to tell you that you can do a twist of the wrist. Just try twisting your left hand back a little, and that will give you opening to be able to see the stitch better, and it just makes the hole bigger down at the bottom, so you'll be able to go in and scoop up that stitch. The next question, number 4, is whenever I try to knit proper continental style, I've always done this thing in between throwing and continental where I use my left hand to wrap the yarn around the needle, which I'm sure no one else is doing, haha. My index finger goes very stiff and numb after only a few minutes no matter how I hold the yarn. What am I doing wrong? And how can I make this more comfortable? Well, it sounds like you are trying to do a hybrid, and that could make it more uncomfortable. But tip number 4 is that you want to really relax your hands. One of the biggest things I noticed when people are learning a new technique in knitting, especially continental style, is that they get extremely tense and they feel like they have to learn it right away, and they're clenching their jaws, their shoulders are all shrugged up. Their hands are gripping the needles like this. You can see the tension in the hands. Well, you need to relax. So put on some relaxing music, light a candle, make sure you're warm and cozy, and then do a little hand exercise before you pick up those needles. Really feel it's like to clench and then release. And after doing that, you might realize, oh, I've been really holding these needles so tight that I'm not really allowing myself to relax. And then what happens is if my hands are tight, my knitting gets really tight. So if you can relax everything and understand that it is going to be a little difficult in the beginning, but as you do this again and again, you will find the rhythm. You just need to give yourself time. Question number 5. This one is from Mary Dyke, and she says, do you find that your gauge is looser? It seems I have to go down a needle size or two. Well, number 5 tip is always do a gauge swatch, because when you switch from knitting the throw method to knitting continental style, your knitting could change. It's just the way it is. And you could end up being tighter in the beginning because you're trying so hard to understand. But as you go, you might find that you're knitting even looser than you were before when you did the throw method. So you do want to do a gauge swatch because your knitting may change as you change your knitting style. Next question is from Dina Callahan. For some reason, I cannot enter the stitches from the front as you show in this video. I have to enter from the back of the stitch in order to get my stitches to the other needle. Not sure what I'm doing wrong, please help. So tip number 6 is make sure you're wrapping your yarn in the right direction. This is very common. It happens a lot because when you're knitting throw method and you insert the needle into the stitch and you wrap the yarn around, you can see how you're going around it. But this is more of a pick, so you're not sure whether you're going the right direction. And if you find that your stitches are coming up on your knitting the wrong way, that means you're picking the wrong direction. You need to pick through the other way. And if you think about it this way, you're going to pick so that the needle is wrapped counterclockwise. Your yarn, if you're a right-handed knitter, your yarn always wraps counterclockwise. Question number 7 is from Rainbow on My Eyeballs, and I love your name. My mom insisted that I try this way of knitting. It's the way she and my grandma have done it. I'm so bad at it right now. I've been doing it for a week. Either the yarn on my left index finger is too loose or too tight. Tip number 7 is don't give up. I know I've said it a few times in this video, but you are learning an entirely new technique. Just think about when you learned how to knit, how it took a little while to understand, and you taught your hands how to, knit and wrap the yarn. Well, now you're throwing a curveball to your hands, and they need a little time to catch up with what you want them to do. So you need to have patience. You need to just stick with it. Just like learning to tie your shoelaces didn't happen overnight. Learning to drive a car didn't happen overnight. You need to give yourself time to learn this new technique and for your brain to make the connection to your hands so that they know what to do. And after a while, I promise you, it will become rhythmic. And you will need to try different methods of winding the yarn through your fingers and find what works for you. I do have some bonus tips for you. And the first one is a rhyme that Donna RM reminded me of. It is to help you remember what you're doing when you knit continental style. And it goes like this. In from the left, go to the back, scoop them through, and off jumps Jack. Remember that little rhyme as you're doing your stitches, and before you know it, it will become effortless. This question came in from Renata Goodrich. Thanks, this is great on the continental knitting. Maybe I catch up with my mom and sisters and how fast they knit. What about when you want to learn to purl continental style? Well, guess what? I also have a video on continental knitting, and you can find it right here, or I'll link it in the description below. I show you how I purl continental style, but I also want to let you know that there's another way to purl, and I keep my finger high when I'm picking the yarn through for continental purling, but I've seen other people keep their index finger low, below the needle for continental, and it kind of pushes it through. So I will show you, if you check the video, you'll see the way I do it, but then I'll show you right here how you can lower your finger and it kind of pushes it on through. Both ways are really effective. Try them both, see what works for you. I hope these tips have helped, and I will see you in the next video. there you go.